please give her your most heartfelt welcome to Raleigh Gaines.
That I met with in most places, so I am positive that I'm in Texas, which is a good sign. That clip we just saw, that was from a hearing last night actually in DC, which it is unfathomable to me how a 23-year-old recent graduate college swimmer has to go to DC to sit in front of Congress to tell them that men and women are different. And then to continue to sit there while they're confused by the explanation. It's mind-blowing the point we're at. Some of you might have seen the clip that's kind of been going viral this morning. I'm sitting there, the ranking member is reading her opening monologue, Representative Lee from Pennsylvania. Reading this opening monologue, she starts off initially, first thing, I can't believe we have to sit here and listen to this transphobic bigotry, blah, blah, blah. Goes on to talk about the mental health of trans individuals and how we're actively, our rhetoric, how my existence is harming these individuals. And so I read my opening testimony. And of course, this wasn't prepared. It was ad-lib, this last little sentence I had. But at the end of my testimony, I say, okay, Representative Lee, if my testimony makes me transphobic, then yours makes you a misogynist. And I'll tell you my line of reasoning there, because, of course, my stance is pro-woman. It's pro-truth, it's pro-fairness, it's pro-reality, pro-common sense, pro-science. Follow the science, right? It's pro-woman. It's not anti-anything, but if being pro-woman immediately deems someone as anti-trans, wouldn't it mean that being pro-trans makes you anti-woman, which is the definition of misogyny, right? It was so funny watching her scramble. They don't like when their intersectional language is used back against them, and so she's talking to her counsel. Well, Madam Chairwoman, I want to have her words removed. That didn't work. There was no grounds for that, so history, she couldn't erase history like she wanted to, unfortunately, and verdict still stands. She is a misogynist in the record. So good news there, and really what this hearing was, it was about upholding Title IX. Of course, this is, I'm sure a lot of you in this room, not to age you guys, sorry, I'm sure a lot of you in this room reap the benefits of Title IX. Of course, a federal civil rights law that prevents discrimination on the basis of sex among all educational programs. Implemented 52, we're heading into the 52nd year. It was implemented in 1972. And so myself, along with 3 million other female athletes, we did get to reap the benefits. Now we have an administration in the White House who's actively rewriting Title IX and changing the definitions of sex entirely, and equating it to gender identity. And I won't go into the specifics of what this means. They've been pursuing this rewrite since April of this year. They want to get it done by the end of this year, so it's in law. So I believe they're going to continue to be very sneaky and try and do this very discreetly, because they know public opinion is not in their favor. So that's what this hearing was about. This is the biggest action, most significant action taken to ultimately derail women's sports. So lots of work being done, and it's mind-blowing that it, in fact, does have to be done relatively urgently, I would add at that. But very grateful to be here in this great state. I'm sure a lot of you know my story. I'm sure some of you have heard it. I'll very briefly summarize it. I was a college swimmer at University of Kentucky. I'm biased. I think the SEC is the best conference, so lucky for you guys, you're joining on, I guess. Finished my career proudly as a 12-time NCAA All-American, 5-time SEC champion. Actually, still to this day, the SEC record holder in the 200 butterfly, making me one of the fastest Americans of all time. SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year, SEC Community Service Leader of the Year. Of course, all of that to say it's a lifelong journey to compete and be successful at the highest level. But my senior year, 3 weeks before our national championships, the NCAA releases a statement saying they will be allowing Leah Thomas, who is actually Will Thomas, from right here in Texas, by the way, they would be allowing him to compete in the women's category, and it was a non-negotiable. He swam 3 years on the men's team at University of Pennsylvania before deciding to switch to the women's team, where at best he ranked in the 400s and 500s nationally, to of course then dominating amongst the women, winning national titles. Thomas and I, in the 200 freestyle, we raced, we dove in, we swam 8 laps, we touched the wall at the end. I look up at the scoreboard, and almost impossibly enough, we had tied, meaning, of course, we went the exact same time, down to the 100th of a second. And you cannot tell me that's not divine intervention, and that's not God having his hand on it. Anyways, we get out of the water, we go behind the awards podium, where the NCAA official looks at both Thomas and myself. Thomas, who is towering over me at 6'4". I know I look tall, I have these heels on. I'm all of 5'5", 5'6". And this official says, "Great job, you two, but you tied. I really have one trophy, so we're gonna give the trophy to Leah. Sorry, Riley, you don't get one." Of course, I was so taken aback in this moment, and I continued to press. Okay, why? Why are you adamant on giving the trophy to a man in the women's 200 freestyle? And I actually appreciate his honesty, and he said it with a sad face. I could tell this guy didn't believe, this official, he didn't believe what he was about to tell me. And he said, "Riley, I'm sorry, but we've been advised that when photos are being taken, it's crucial that Leah's holding the trophy. Again, you can pose with this one, but you have to give yours back. Leah takes the trophy home. You go home empty-handed, end of story." And so, of course, that was all I needed to hear. They reduced everything we'd worked our entire lives for, down to a photo op, to validate the feelings and the identity of a male, at the expense of our feelings and identity. Not to mention, of course, the locker room aspect, which I can't even accurately put into words. The feelings of course, it's awkward, and it's embarrassing, and it's uncomfortable. But the feelings of betrayal and utter violation, undressing next to, again, a 6'4", 22-year-old man, fully intact with and exposing male genitalia, inches away from where you were simultaneously undressed. Alongside with the silencing that we faced and continue to face from our universities, you heard a little bit in that brief snippet of the miserable, 10-hour-long hearing. I don't recommend anyone go back and watch it because you will be asleep by the end of it, like I almost was. You heard a very brief piece of why people are scared to speak out. Like I said, the threats are real. Even last time we were in Texas, which, let me just briefly talk about the impact we've had here in Texas. Representative Valerie Swanson introduced this bill on the House side, protecting kindergarten through 12th grade. This was before the states had really jumped on and included college. I think there was a lot of confusion about what to do surrounding the NCAA. Is this something we leave to the NCAA to handle? Of course, they have now proven that they failed us miserably. But it passed, and they protected kindergarten through 12th grade here in Texas. But we came back, Texas Values came back, knew we needed to add on college to this bill. So again, Valerie Swanson, Mays Middleton, in the Senate, we got this bill through, but it certainly was not easy. Lots of on-the-ground work, of course, done by Texas Values, testifying before both the House and the Senate many times. But they got it through. God bless Texas, right? But Governor Greg Abbott, he had a ceremonial bill signing for the Save Women's Sports Act. And what better place to do it than Texas Women's University, The Texas Women's University Hall of Fame actually is where this bill signing took place. And so we went there. I didn't know Denton, Texas was like Austin's little sister or brother. I don't want to misgender Denton. Oh my gosh. Well, that certainly did not go without opposition. We were met with men who were wearing dresses and had these beards and signs and all kinds of really just craziness. There was a woman, Michelle Evans, who is an amazing fighter for this state as well. She's on the ground at the Capitol a lot of the time too. She was spit on in that scenario. We had legislators who had water, or who knows actually, if it was water, that might be a little too safe to assume. Liquids poured onto them, things thrown at us, the most obscene, profane, heinous things you could possibly yell at someone. That was happening right here in Texas. But despite all that, we got it through, which is really great news. And actually, one more piece about Texas that I in this hearing yesterday, who's familiar with Representative Corcool? Because I don't even know Crockett. Sorry, Representative Crockett. Oh my gosh. Unelect her, get her out of office. She sat in front of, and as a sitting U.S. Congresswoman, she sat in front of this hearing and said the state of Texas is deplorable. Deplorable is the words she used. The state that she represents, the state that she is from, she called deplorable. So if I had any jurisdiction in this, I certainly, and I of course don't believe the people in this room, would never vote for her. Anyways, lots of really amazing things being done. Now 23 states have passed the Fairness in Women's Sports Bill. Hopefully Ohio will become the 24th next week. We'll be following that pretty closely. And like I said, Texas values, you guys are really grateful. I do a lot of advocacy work. I'm always hesitant to say I'm an activist because I feel like if I say that I should have purple hair and be screeching at people. But I am proud to be an activist, and I do a lot of this advocacy work in different states. And there are no policy groups, especially faith-based policy groups, none come close to Texas values. So you guys are very fortunate. I hear all the time, how do you find the courage? How are you so brave? And I respond back with easily, because I'm saying quite literally the most basic thing anyone could possibly say. And we all know it. The only prerequisite to saying exactly what I'm saying is, I think, taking 5th grade science. That's quite literally it. Maybe not even that high. Men are men, women are women. You cannot change your sex, and each sex is deserving of equal opportunities. Very, very basic. We have to be willing to say the emperor wears no clothes. And so if I can challenge you guys at all, these next 11 months, that's what we're working with here. I think we can all agree, and I choose always to remain hopeful. And I certainly believe we live in the greatest country on the face of this earth. But these next 11 months, we are at a precipice here. I think it's pretty evident, and that hearing last night was proof. Hours being berated and called names by sitting members of Congress, that's proof. Who can't define a woman, might I add? It's proof that America has lost its soul, okay? We're at a turning point here. These next 11 months, work as hard as you can. It's our job as Americans and as Christians to restore sanity in America, whatever that looks like. By no means, when I graduated college, did I feel prepared for any of this. How could you, right? I graduated and had every intent of being a dentist, of all things. I had scored in the top percentile of the DAT, which is the dental admissions test to get into dental school, which, believe it or not, covers biology, and chemistry, organic chemistry, math, reading, all the things. Scored in the top percentile, had been awarded a pretty hefty sum in scholarship money, accepted my seat, put my deposit down. I was ready to go. I was actually going to specialize in endodontics, which is root canals, weirdly enough. By no means did I feel prepared for this. But understand, if He calls us, He equips us. I had this notion before that He called the equipped. I believed before that He called the equipped, but that was a wrong assumption. He equips the called. And if He brings you to it, He will bring you through it. Just as He did Moses, who led the Israelites out with Aaron and his staff. And just as He did with Joshua, who He promised a victory over the Canaanites. And just as He did with Esther, before she was brought before the king. And I certainly believe that we are all in this room for a purpose. On this earth at such a time for a purpose, and to deny His calling is disobedience. We're a body of Christ. We all, some people are the hands, some people are the feet. Unfortunately, for both my husband and my parents, I have always been the mouth for them. In whatever way you can contribute to helping, whether that is through financial means and supporting Texas values, if you can be on the ground in Austin, fighting just like Jonathan, Mary Elizabeth, the other Jonathan, Jeremy, this team is doing, be on the ground. But we're a body of Christ. We all have different roles. And again, it's our job to make sure those roles are being fulfilled. I could stand up here and talk forever, but he's like standing there like a bodyguard. He looks like he's gonna tackle me off the stage. I don't blame you. Mark Davis is awesome too. Yeah, also tune in to Mark Davis's show. He's been incredible, yeah. He's been incredible, and I certainly know firsthand that nice media is hard to come by. So I appreciate you more than you could possibly know. I'll just finish by saying my favorite Bible verse, Romans 8:18. It's always been my favorite. It was my favorite when I was younger because, truthfully, I applied it to swimming. How cringe is that? But it's for our present sufferings aren't worth comparing to the glory that will be revealed in us. And I always said the present sufferings were practice and the time, the sacrifices that you made, the time you put in. But it paled in comparison when you won a championship or when you win a best time or broke some record. That's how I applied that verse. But let me tell you, that verse is more applicable now than it ever could have been previously. For our present sufferings, you heard some of the stuff. Like I said in that hearing, my address got leaked a few weeks ago to my new house I just built. There have been drones flying above it. People showing up, banging on my door, standing in my front lawn. Of course, you don't even want to know the amount of hate mail. I'm so scary, right? Boo. So vicious. You don't even want to know the amount of hate mail that I've gotten. And while I agree that's scary, it is our present sufferings, right? It pales in comparison when you know what you're fighting for and really who you're fighting for. I, of course, having a younger sister myself, being married a year and a half, I can only hope to have a daughter of my own one day. That's who I'm fighting for. And we only have an audience of one. And what scares me more than any of those things is not standing firm for biological truth, biological reality, and of course biblical truth. He's getting closer, have y'all noticed? No, I appreciate you guys very, very much. It's truly a blessing to be in a room full of people who love this country, people who are strong in their faith, and people who know what a woman is. So, thank you guys very, very much.